Hey guys, what is going on? This is Furgie here, back with another video. I'm sorry for my absence. I've been doing quite a bit of things. I've been pretty busy and I've been on vacation, but today we're going to jump right back into our next series that we're starting up. And this is going to be a complete dungeon guide for every dungeon and eventually trial in the Elder Scrolls Online Tamriel Unlimited. Now these videos are pretty much going to be giving step-by-step in-depth guides of every dungeon, how to handle each encounter, how to handle each boss, and what exactly makes them difficult and the best strategy you can use to defeat them. Now these first three dungeons at level 15 are all very easy, and they're a good taste to what you need to do exactly in these dungeons. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about how you want to create your group and how exactly you want to handle these things. Now each dungeon is pretty much created with the same composition that you would use in many other MMOs. You're going to have a tank, a healer, and 2 damage dealers. The tank's job is to take aggro as many mobs as he can and take all their damage. The healer's is to heal, and the damage dealer's is to deal damage. Those two are pretty straightforward. If everyone is doing their role correctly, these things should all really be a breeze, even most of the boss fights. The tank in particular, because if he's taking most of the damage and if he has aggro, your cloth-wearing players aren't going to be picked off, and things are just going to be a lot easier if he knows what's up. So first of all, let's jump into the first ad encounters we're going to have in this dungeon. There are a lot of them, and really, if you can handle the massive amount of ranged and melee ads, you're going to be just fine on most of the boss fights. This first room only has 5 or 6 of them, so it's a really good introduction. Now, priority throughout this entire dungeon is going to be the ranged ads. Now, they're pretty much going to be a lot more important than the melee ones because the melee ones don't have many attacks, while the range can blindside the group in many different ways, throw down area of effects, and really hassle you more than any of the characters that might not even be able to reach you if you're ranged. The second room has quite a bit more ads, about 2 or 3 times as many as in the last room, so it's going to be even more important that your tank is taking as much aggro as possible on as many of these ads as he can. You'll see here at the end of this room there's a stray hunter in the back that he couldn't even really see, which isn't a big deal, but you'll just see how much damage they can do if the tank doesn't have as much aggro as he can. Obviously I don't have much health at all, and I'm wearing light armor, so that makes it a little bit worse, but nonetheless, if those are taken down and nuked as fast as possible, all these extra trash rooms are going to be a lot easier than if you don't pay attention to them. Now the first boss we have here is Taz Kid, the Packmaster, and this is a very good introduction to dungeons in general. He is a very easy boss. He has 2 groups of ads to the left and right of him, and it is impossible to pull him without pulling these as well. So I would say, first of all, focus on the 2 ranged ads, as I said earlier. Then you can focus on the dogs, and then finally the boss. If there are no ads and the tank can just take the simple damage from the boss, it's going to make this fight very easy, along with many others that include ads. So ads priority. As you can see, I got blindsided by some arrows there. And he's going to go down pretty quickly. Once the ads are dead, there's not much he can do besides just hit our tank pretty quickly, and obviously he wasn't too big of a problem. Shout out to this group I'm with here, by the way. I just found these random guys, and they all did a very good job. They all know what they're doing, and it was a breeze. So next we're going to move into some more of these goblin areas. Next up, we're going to have some healers along with the ranged players. So you really want to focus on the healers as well, probably even more than the ranged players, or they're going to be keeping all of the other ads up and just make things a lot harder on you. So priority now is healers, ranged, and then melee. Alright, so now we're going to get into the boss room of Cheap Ozazai, and pretty much there are about 25 ads before you even reach him, but there are not many once you actually reach the fight. If you can carefully pull every ad around him without pulling him, as you can see I got kind of close here, you can really make the rest of the engagement a lot easier. There are quite a few around him, so you want to follow the same priority. Make sure you're avoiding area of effects and certain volleys from the archers. And this room should be fairly easy if you can handle the others before it. Really, the difficult part is when you get to the boss here. Alright, so onto the Warchief. Now, at the beginning of the engagement, he's going to plunge down into the group just like this. Make sure you don't get hit like I did. And really, this is not too difficult of a fight. He does have a specific AoE that he will conjure around himself that will hurt everyone that's near it. So if you're ranged, make sure you can get out of that. If you're melee, you probably will have to just tank it. He will also put little area of effects on specific players that they will have to take the damage from. Now, these players can get out of the group and keep the rest of the group from taking that damage. So that's going to be the most important thing, is to avoid injuring the rest of the group with the mechanics that he's using. And really, if you can just take the damage by yourself, the healer won't have too much to worry about. But this is the most, I think, healing important fight out of all of the ones in the dungeon. You're going to need to, except for maybe the last one, if the healer's on his game, along with every other place in this dungeon, you should be just fine. So now, after walking for quite a while, we're going to get into a different section of the dungeon, which you would think of when you think of Fungal Grotto. There are going to be a lot of dregs here, I think that's how you pronounce their name, before you get to this next boss, along with several little tiny crabs. Now, I would say focus on these little crabs first, because there are a bunch of them, they're hard to see, and they're just going to nip at your toes and slowly take your health down and really give you unnecessary damage. So if you let your tank or your melee players focus on the dregs, you can take down those little crabs. As you can see here in this next area, there are just dozens of them. And if you really don't pay attention to them, they'll actually bring your health down quite a bit. I've been killed by them before in other runs. So nuke those down, use your area of effects, light them on fire, do whatever you need to do to kill those. This is on the damage dealers, of course. And then focus on the dregs afterwards, because they're not going to do much except for basic melee damage on the tank. The next boss we're on to here is Broodbirther, and there is a pack of ads to her left with 3 dregs. If you focus on them first and take them down before pulling her, this will make things a lot easier, because she is probably one of the easiest bosses in this dungeon, except for maybe Taz Kid. They're both about the same. She really doesn't do much except for a decent amount of damage on her current tank target, quite a bit actually, so if your healer can pretty much just focus on him, there's not going to be much other damage. She also has a frontal cone attack that's only going to focus on the tank. It's not a very wide attack at all, so it's very, very easy to avoid. Just make sure you kill her 2 other dregs first, and then you can focus on her herself. Also, just another tidbit, in every engagement, make sure your tank has good enough aggro or threat on as many ads as you can before you start blowing off as much damage as you can, because you're going to be doing more damage than him, and you might pull off some threat if you don't pay attention. As you can see here, she does not do much at all. Our health isn't hardly going down at all, except for our tanks taking a little bit of damage from her basic auto attack. So really, this fight doesn't need to be sweat at all. It's very easy. There's her frontal cone, and you should be able to bring her down pretty swiftly with not a problem at all. These next 2 bosses are the ones that will bring up some problems for you, most likely. They're the hardest 2 in the dungeon. The first of all is kra'gh. He's hard for 2 reasons. First of all, he has his little crab buddies running around with him constantly. And like I said just earlier, they're going to nip at your toes. So you really want to focus on them, because they'll bring your health down and just give you some unnecessary damage that your healer will need to make up for. And he'll have to ignore the tank, which is taking an insane amount of damage from kra'gh's generic attack. kra'gh does a lot of damage, even to the point where if he gets on a ranged player in cloth, he can kill them in 2 or 3 hits, especially if you don't have any health like me. So really, if you can kill him as fast as possible and keep your tank from going down, that's the best way to do it. So high damage priority is very important on this fight in particular. Now we are on to the 5th and final boss of the dungeon, and this is by far the hardest one, as it should be. He is the final boss. This is kra'gh the Drej King. Now, this boss is hard for 2 reasons. First of all, as you'll see here in a moment, he has a huge lightning-based AoE that takes up most of the room he's standing in. This needs to be avoided, rolled out of dodge, etc. Something of the sort that's going to keep you from taking that massive amount of damage, or it's just going to save a lot of mana from your healer, and he's going to have to worry about you more than he is the tank, who's currently taking quite a bit of damage from kra'gh's basic auto attack. The boss will also fixate on random players, like you just saw him do there. He'll run over to you and just give you a nice slap, and it does quite a bit of damage, especially if you don't have very much armor like myself. So those 2 mechanics need to be followed correctly, along with the little crabs that are running around like usual. And if you can do those, and if your healer can keep up his mana, and if your tank can keep up his aggro, things should be just fine. But the biggest thing is avoid that lightning AoE. I know I failed miserably in this video, but as you can see, it does quite a bit of damage, and if you can avoid that and then handle the other mechanics correctly, you should be just fine in bringing down Drej, and hopefully getting some great rare loot like this Goblin's Bane. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope this was a very informative video. I'm just trying to help you all get through this dungeon at first, especially if you haven't done this kind of thing before, you don't know exactly how to run it. If you're trying to go in with like 4 damage dealers, it's just going to be extremely difficult for you. So look out for the other level 15 dungeons soon, along with many more in the future, along with trials, of course, once I get there. And I will just see you guys next time. So thanks for watching. This has been Furgie, and good luck in your dungeons.